Neeraj, the show that you've just created, Special Ops for Hotstar, it's an espionage story. It's the story of the manhunt for the mastermind behind the 2001 Parliament attacks in Delhi. Why was this a story that you wanted to tell?
Essentially, two things, because there was this huge conspiracy by the 2001 Parliament attacks. It's something that while we were researching for Baby, we came across a couple of pieces of information at that point of time, which was very interesting, but we couldn't make it a part of that film.
Right.
But over the years, that information sort of stayed, grew organically. I met more people, and considering the kind of stories that we end up telling,
correct,
more often than not, we get another perspective of the same incident from another person, another armed force official, and all of that. So it kept on growing, and then basis that particular rumor, that particular theory, which was in abundance at the time of the Parliament attacks, the story sort of started germinating and all of that.
Right. You've made Baby, you've made Naam Shabana, you've made Ayari. I guess this is the question you get asked a lot. Why is the espionage genre one that fascinates you? International terrorism.
Stories fascinate me, not just the genre per
right.
se, but the stories in that genre, and
right.
some of them are so unique, like the one that we are telling in the Special Ops.
Right.
I mean, you could never think of a 19-year manhunt.
Correct.
And that too based on the conviction of just one strong individual.
Correct.
Who's ridiculed at that time in 2001. He's carrying that hurt, that pain for 19 years, and no one apart from his wife believes in what he has to offer.
Right.
And for 19 years, that carrying that hurt and carrying that pain, and then reaching a point of complete conviction, and is like a big moment.
Correct.
And that sort of has happened to different people at different points of time. Maybe not 19 years in most cases and all that, but that feeling is amazing. You against the world. It's a typical classical underdog story, and I felt this was huge.
Right.
This was huge considering the backdrop and considering all the events that happened.
Is there a part of you that or how do you make sure, Neeraj, that even within the genre that they feel like, of course they're all different stories, but how do you perhaps in terms of form, that they look very different, not just because of the geography. I mean, certainly the geography of Baby would be different from the geography of Naam Shabana, would be different from the geography here. But is that something that you're interested in particularly, in making sure that they look texturally completely different?
Inherently, you'll have to look at the story that you have to offer.
Right.
Now, since we had that advantage very clearly in Special Ops, because our story starts in 2001.
That's right.
So automatically you're going back about 18, 19 years, 20 years back in time. So the period is completely different.
Correct.
And we see Kay Kay, who's younger by 19 years in that part of the story and all that. So more importantly, I believe that while you're doing the story, when you're trying to structure the whole screenplay, if you have that at the back of your mind, it helps you as a writer, and evidently then it will help the director on the show, which is what happened
in this case. Neeraj, also certainly Baby, Naam Shabana, also MS Dhoni, they're all films that on some level are about national pride. They evoke that feeling of national pride, and that's great, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it feels like today, a lot of the films that are being made today are not just about. There's a very concerted effort to evoke a hyper-nationalism. I don't want to take names, but I want to ask if you look at that, and that's something that you consciously are aware of and avoid.
Why do I remember you asking a similar question the last time we met?
So that nothing's changed since we last met.
Yeah, nothing's changed. And
so where facts are mangled, where history is rewritten to sort of serve a particular narrative, or to sort of charge this whole sentiment of hyper-nationalism. It almost feels not almost, it's problematic.
You use the word narrative, and that's what these films are. They'll form a part of the larger narrative that people are trying to do or whatever.
Right.
I've never been interested in that sort of storytelling, and hopefully I'll never indulge in that kind of storytelling. My storytelling, or the kind of stories that we all take a lot of pride in telling, is coming from a fact of a very common place. We talk about very, very normal people, very, very common people.
Right.
And them turning into these heroes, be it Dhoni, be it the guy from Wednesday,
Correct.
or be it any of these films that you're talking about, people who don't go about jingoism,
That's
people
right.
who don't go over the top, and people who don't even want to claim that, okay, this was done by me. And those are the biggest stories for us. The point is that whatever you want to tell through your story, that should come across, nothing else.
Right.
And if you're honest enough as a storyteller, that shouldn't be a huge problem at all, I feel.
Are you conscious about avoiding, perpetuating Islamophobia? In films about international terrorism, is an easy trap to fall into. How does one make sure that that doesn't happen?
So if you want to figure out a hole somewhere, you will end up finding
Right.
one. So I mean, I can't stop anyone and everyone from doing that. But if I come to the kind of films that we've done,
Yeah.
and especially in context to special ops, it's something that you will see very clearly that the story starts from 2001, ends in present day, and we've never ever fallen into that trap ki this story has to have a certain tone or color, be it religion, be it caste or whatever.
Right.
That has been always taken care of, which is the reason why you don't find a name in Wednesday. And our basic values haven't changed. There's a certain purpose of storytelling also. There's certain responsibilities of a
Yeah.
storyteller. And hopefully we've not forgotten in the time that we've spent in this industry. And those are very crucial values to us. And I hope they remain.
It feels, Neeraj, like today the film industry is certainly divided. We live in times, in polarizing times, and it feels like there are the liberal voices. There are you have the Vishal Bhardwaj, and you have Kabir Khan, and you have others, and then you have those who are proudly right, whether it's Anupam, whether it's Kangana Ranaut, and many others. Do you feel that as storytellers and as artists, that it is important to take a position?
Yeah, all the three positions actually. You can be neutral as well. I don't have a problem with an individual having an opinion. Me and you took the name of Mr. Kher in this.
Right.
He has completely different views on everything, and I have different views on that. But that doesn't mean that we can't work together. We can't coexist together, right?
Right.
And it's a healthy thing sometimes to hear the other person out. It's extremely healthy. People discount that fact. But hearing is an important part of any conversation.
Right.
And my biggest fear is that we are losing that patience and that tendency to hearing,
Right.
listening. That's where the key is. If we start hearing more, listening more, maybe we'll land less in trouble, so to speak.
Why are popular artists, whether it's big stars, whether it's famous filmmakers, successful filmmakers like yourself, why, unlike the West, and this is not accusatory, this is more sort of curious, unlike the West, where they take political stands very openly and proudly, why do you think we don't have that culture here?
I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
The point is that A, I'm not on social.
Right.
B, I'm not in media every next day.
Right.
It's very easy for me to set an opinion, but I'm not there to defend it the next day. I can't have a dialogue with the person who's refuting it or who doesn't acknowledge that opinion. I'm not there to defend it.
Right.
So it just becomes an opinion hanging out loosely for anyone to have a feast.
But it's a position. So let me offer you that platform today.
So
as much time
allow
as you
me to
like.
complete.
Okay.
So I chose the medium,
Right.
the film medium and the story, whatever, whether it's a short film or whether it's a web series, to be that platform for me. And whatever that I need to tell, whatever that I need to speak about, is spoken through these mediums, and that's the stance that I've chosen for myself. Yeah.
Are you cynical about the place we are in today?
Not at all.
Socially?
Not at all. Not cynical. I'm obviously a very, very optimistic guy. So I mean, I would like to see that everything comes to some sort of a level-headedness and there's sanity. How we work towards it is the bigger concern.
Well, let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Neeraj, you began your career in television, but
True.
did you do episodic television?
Episodic. So I mean, we used to tell 45-minute, 50-minute stories, and I've done a 2-hour special, that one with Kay Kay for that matter.
Right,
That's
right.
where I met Kay Kay about, if I'm not mistaken, about 15, 16 years back.
Wow. So what was it like sort of returning to the format? And how does this format, I mean, how do you feel like you exploited the format of the web? I mean, what does it allow you to do that that perhaps the traditional formats don't? Or did they just feel, or was it just because this is a longer story, a larger story to tell, that it lent itself?
That it is for sure. I mean, you have a 7.5-hour story to say, you're not bothered too much about the fact that you've got to leave this portion out or that, so you can maintain the so-called sanctity of that particular story.
Correct.
In totality. And what I think about us coming back to this format is like, that was a great era for television.
Right.
We had some of our best writers and directors around that time coming from television into films. And then everything stopped.
Correct.
You know why.
And then of course, yes.
So the web having come back in the way that it is, that allows us to go back to those kind of stories and, tell those stories in the most effective manner. I feel that the key should be that, choosing the right stories for this particular medium.
Yeah.
And not just saying that, okay, fine, I'm not getting a chance to do a film.
Right. It shouldn't be the dumping ground for what you can't do in film.
It shouldn't be the dumping ground.
Right.
As long as we are all careful, and that goes not only for the makers, but for the people who are greenlighting projects.
That's right. Right.
For as long as they understand this, that there are no shortcuts, this can become a great medium. It can become a huge medium, and it's on its way. Sure. I mean, no one can stop it.
In terms of writing, Neeraj, because you're a writer, I mean, structurally it's completely different. The whole idea of writing a cliffhanger at the end of it, I mean, is it a whole different discipline?
It is, because you're writing sort of 8 mini films.
That's
and
right.
then making this
it has
one
to work
series.
as a right.
Yeah, so we had 3 writers on board on this one. I mean, there was me, and then there was Deepak and Benazir. We all worked together on this particular project. And it became very helpful, because normally I write alone. I do my screenplay alone on films.
Yeah.
And it became quite a learning curve for me to collaborate with 2 other people, and then throwing ideas about, okay, this character had done this last, which episode 2, okay, fine, let's. So it was a great experience that was, collaborating in terms of writing, because I've never done that in my life. I've always written alone. So that was huge learning.
When we talk about inevitably, I find that especially with the action genre, with genres like espionage, the best form of praise seems to be, it's international standards. It almost seems like, this action looks like it's international. First of all,
I didn't like it the first time I heard it when
I was going to ask, is that an aspiration?
No way. It's actually, it hurts. It hurts because, you don't want to hear that when you've done. I remember the first time, I heard it was when the trailer of Baby came out.
Right.
And I got a phone call from a co-actor, lovely guy. He didn't mean it that way. He didn't know what it would mean to me and how I'd take it. But he used those words, and I felt very, very bad. I mean, why do we have to be, so full of so low self-esteem, it's a story. I mean, how does it, and it came back again with Special Ops, when people saw the trailer and suddenly, you're
getting it's slick, and it seems like it's like just it's a lazy kind of way to praise something, right?
Yeah, and I see a lot of surprise right now, in terms of the mounting of the show, that, my God, this is looking so international, this is looking so slick.
Right.
What does that even mean? We are supposed to, that's the basic thing which is the reason why we were called upon. Yeah?
Right. But what I want to ask is, today when the world has become so small, in the sense that you can access espionage shows made in other countries, Homeland and Night Manager and everything else that's made.
True.
Does it have the same compelling value that those shows do? I mean, those shows have been proven with time. They've been in multiple seasons. But how does one make sure that the stories that one is telling? Because again, this is I know that Hotstar isn't necessarily going out to as many countries, but it's a show that will eventually travel.
It's going out.
It is.
Yeah.
So then, is there a way to write in such a way or shoot in such a way that that it is talking? It will appeal to people of any part of the world, and how does one do that?
No, I won't think so much about it. I wouldn't like to think that, okay, now this show is going to get consumed in, say, UK or US, so let me design it. You can't customize it that way.
Right.
And that's not even at the back of my mind when I'm writing it. So to answer that part of the question, no. In terms of customization, no. one is not customizing it to that kind.
But then one believes that it's a universal enough story that will. Right.
Yes, that's where the trick is. Choosing that particular story.
Right.
If you've chosen something which is like more universal, which is talking about
themes that
and it can be cathartic for anyone across the world.
Correct.
I mean, the human stories, basically, that's what I'm talking about. So when I say that, yes, a journey about about a guy who struggled with truth for 19 long years, you can easily relate to any person around the world. I mean, it doesn't have to be an Indian to sort of resonate with it. Yes.
Right. How has, if it has at all, Neeraj, this experience of sort of going back to the roots, going back to episodic storytelling, long form storytelling, how will that change in any way or affect your filmmaking? I mean, does it make you a better filmmaker? Does it also with what you can do with, I would imagine, with long form is deep dive into character, a lot of things that feature film format doesn't necessarily allow you to do. Do you see those as constraints now that you return to filmmaking?
No, I hope I'm learning because I found it very similar, the writing of the screenplay for Special Ops, very similar to my writing experience on Ghalib Danger, which was the novel I wrote. So it was almost like a homecoming on that level, because I was working on each and every sub-character over there, and this is what it came into play over here.
Correct.
So for me, web writing became very, very similar to novel writing.
Right.
And now...
But film is not going to allow you that much time to spend.
Films are never going to allow you that, but what it does teach you, in my opinion, is that even if you've got so little screen time, that aspect of characterization should not be missed.
Right.
And if you can
what really counts.
If you can distill it to say one or two things about that character, make it a nuance, make it a line or something, but still work on each and every single character. I think that's my takeaway. That's my learning from this. Yeah.
Right. What did you enjoy most about doing this show? I mean, it's very slick. You've got a cast that looks like they could actually go. I've always found so often you see some of these shows and you think that these guys don't even look like they could take on. But this looks like the right sort of cast. What did you enjoy most about? You've shot it. There is scale.
It's everything. Just the fact that one got to tell the story the way one wanted to.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest plus. The ensemble, I'm very proud of the ensemble. Like Kay Kay, always a pleasure. We've worked, and again, after so many years, he was there in Baby in a bit role,
in a very small role,
but
correct.
like to do something like this again.
Yeah.
Karan, I think, is going to be a big discovery after this one. When it comes out on the 17th of March, I think that people are going to notice him and how he's done a fab job.
Okay.
The other actors, be it Vipul, Meher, everyone for that matter, and all of them are very, very good. So working with this ensemble, that was a big experience. I'll always cherish it.
Sure.
On a personal note, travel always is welcome.
Okay.
So that's there.
You're shot in how many countries?
We shot in, as a Delhi, Bombay, of course, in India, and then we shot in Azerbaijan, and then Jordan, Amman and Aqaba. We shot in Turkey, some stock from UAE. So all that kind of stuff happened. So the bigger learning, I think, is working with foreign crews. I mean, that's a big plus, because you're always trying to overcome that barrier of language, of culture, and all of that. We had some of the best experiences ever while working with the Jordanian crew on this one. Lovely people, and we were like working for 16 hours, 17 hours a day, and always a smile on their faces. So it was a treat. That was, you get to learn so much just by virtue of being in such conditions, by putting yourself in play with these makers. That it's something that you're going to cherish forever.
You next, of course, go into Chanakya, which is the film on Chanakya, who was, of course, the intellectual advisor to the Maurya dynasty and to Chandragupta Maurya. They say that the past is important because it informs the future. Why is this a story that's relevant today? Why is this? Is it just the celebration of a wise man whose advice perhaps informed key decisions? Or do you feel like there is a relevance to sort of current times?
You said it. I mean, number one, it's a celebration of that life. People have heard of him. People have heard stories about him, read stories about him. But it's time we had a film on Chanakya. That obviously was a big drawing factor for me, that this was a unique personality.
Right.
Wisdom, knowledge are words that we easily associate with Chanakya, but
That's right.
I would like to know more about his life. What shaped that particular individual? For me, that is extremely important, that he wasn't born that way.
Right.
I mean, what were the incidents that shaped him to be the individual who thought in that particular manner? And I felt it's a huge story. It's not just a big story, it's a huge story.
Right.
And yeah, that became a starting point, and that became a crucial starting point for me choosing this material.
Right.
And hopefully people will like it. I mean, that's what one can expect and hope.
Finally, Neeraj, is there a different feeling, days before a show is meant to launch? Does it feel very different from days before a movie is supposed to launch?
This doesn't make it feel any different.
Right, that's right. Correct.
What
leads
still
up
doing
to it is similar.
interviews.
Yeah.
You're still being asked what it's all about and
Correct.
all. So it doesn't make one feel different. Yeah. See, the thing is that before we started this, there was this one conversation that used to go and do rounds, was that you don't have box office pressure on
That's
this
right.
one and all of that. But I think that ultimately there is a responsibility as a storyteller. This work is going to be in public domain.
Correct.
And you cannot take it lightly. You cannot take it not seriously enough.
Right.
There's no other. It's not a shortcut. So whatever you're doing, your brand is attached, your name is attached. I've written the show and I've co-directed it with Shivam.
Yeah.
And not for once did we feel that we can take it easy and
Right.
this
It's a
can
the stakes are lesser.
yeah,
Right.
and there's no tickets
Correct.
going to be sold on this one, so
yeah.
nothing of that sort. We never felt that way. In fact, what we realized during the making and the post of this is that we still have to be careful about, because small little things like you mix for a film, it's a 5.1 7.1 mix. When you're mixing for a show, the technicalities are different,
Right.
and that approach becomes different. So for us it became a completely new learning curve,
Right.
how to respond to this particular medium, this particular format, how the BG becomes completely different from what you're doing on a film.
Right.
The certain frequencies are simply not going to work over here. So that became a learning curve. I ended up spending a lot of time in the mix on account of this. And
Right.
so I mean, to answer your question, it's a completely different medium, and if you think you can go ahead disrespecting it, sorry, it's not for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember the last time we met, I remember you telling me that that you can be accused of many things, but that you're very objective about your work, that you can be very objective, and that you know exactly what the problems are with even the films, not just the ones that didn't work, but even the ones that people love and hail as. Why do you think that is such a rare quality in the business that you're in?
Is it rare? I don't know.
It's extremely rare. I mean,
You'd be meeting people. I don't happen to meet
if
so
you
many
just
people.
look, if you just look in the media, you know that filmmakers are constant. I mean, there is an almost a sort of push and pull where there's an unrealistic,
I think one tends to fall in love with their work,
Sure.
and that's the bane, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would attribute it to you in that manner. I
Right.
mean, for me, you can't get too attached to something that you create and then refuse to see the flaws that are so obvious to
That's right.
everyone. And I don't think that success and failure is the metric.
Sure.
That
Sure.
for good work. I mean, that can't be
True.
a hit or a flop
Correct.
or this that. Even like I mentioned, even the best, whether it's a Wednesday or whether
Right.
it's Baby for that matter, there are certain things. Well, when I was editing it, when I was mixing it, I was cringing. I mean,
as early on as that, you're able to see it, huh?
that's when you see it.
Wow. Okay.
That's not early.
no, because
that's
most
too late.
filmmakers will say that in retrospect, one can look back with time and see.
No.
see-
I haven't revisited too many of my films.
Okay.
I mean, you're seeing the film practically for what, 30 times during
Yeah,
the edit,
yeah.
30, 40 times during the mix.
Right.
I mean, by then you are seeing it through the pores. I mean,
Right.
you know exactly where you bungled up.
Right.
And then you're wishing and praying that maybe the critic,
Will
maybe
not
the
notice it.
audiences, maybe everybody will just forgive you and move on. They won't
Right.
notice.
Right.
That's the kind of hope and praying that you're doing at that time.
Right.
But yeah, as a maker, you would know. You would know exactly what you're doing. I mean, if you fall in love with it, then I don't know.
So, and finally, do you see yourself revisiting this medium, telling more stories in the long format, episodic format?
Well, we've launched Friday Storytellers with this. This
Right.
is the first product that's going to come out from Friday Storytellers. Yes, I mean, like I told you, this is homecoming for us. I mean,
Right.
this was the medium.
But personally, you'd be interested in
I would be. I don't know how much I will be able to do.
Sure.
But Friday Storytellers is actively going to be pursuing this.
Right.
We're going to be making stuff on a regular basis. I mean, I'll be seeing it from the outset as much as I can, given how much I can allow myself.
Right.
But yeah, this is an exciting format and it's here to stay. There's no
Right.
denying this. Yeah.
Well, cannot wait to watch the show. I got a chance to preview a little bit of footage, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And now I want to see it all put together and sort of
Sure,
see
sure,
it.
sure. Thank you so much, and do let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cannot wait.
Thank you.